Welcome to another episode of Delta Dialogues, your monthly call for the integrated photonics community. My name is Jorn Smeets and I am your host. Last time at the Delta Dialogues, we discussed the PIC Summit 2023. Together with Twan Korthorst from Synopsys, we gave you a sneak preview into the program and discussed the various sessions that he was looking forward to. Furthermore, we also discussed various side events that will take place at the PIC Summit in November. We had William Stevens from the Tech Tour Photonics, a specialized investment meeting where startups and investors are brought together in the photonics industry. But also we spoke with Peter van Arkel. He is the roadmapping director of the IPSR International, a global roadmap on PIC technology that is coordinated by MIT and PhotonDelta. This episode of Delta Dialogues is all about funding. Funding is a crucial element of an emerging industry such as integrated photonics. Companies that are growing fast, of course, need capital to invest in people, machinery, and processes. So today in the program, we have for you an interview with Weers, our Chief Financial Officer. Together with Laurens, we're going to talk about the ambitions of PhotonDelta in the National Growth Fund and focus a little bit more on what's required for funding. So what are the challenges that the industry is facing when it comes to funding, and how is PhotonDelta helping to solve or overcome those challenges? Second, we'll have a founder of a startup, Francesco Pessolano from Astrape Networks, who recently received a 1.6 million euro fund. So together with him, we're going to first understand a little bit more about what Astrape Networks does, and then we're going to listen also on the various challenges that he's facing as a business looking for funding to grow his business. Then third, we'll have an interview with Joachim de Sterke. Joachim is general partner at PhotonVentures, where a specialized fund on integrated photonics companies. And also with him, we're going to look into, okay, what are the challenges of funding that startups are facing? What is the, let's say, the vision of PhotonVentures, and what are they doing in this regard? Then last but not least, we have Chiara Greganti. She is a co-founder of Vitrea Labs, a startup that uses photonics technologies, and we're going to listen to what her view is on the various challenges to grow her business, and also especially when it comes to funding. So all of these are also a sneak preview again into the PIC Summit of this year, where we'll be talking with some of these speakers in a panel discussion about the investment landscape. So we invite you to also attend that session. All right, let's start with the program with our first speaker, Weers. Welcome, Laurens, to Delta Dialogues. It's your first episode on the show, so maybe if you could please introduce yourself briefly to the audience.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here. So I'm Laurens. I'm since February 1st board member and CFO of PhotonDelta. So really exciting to be in this industry. I have a background as a financial auditor at the big four firms and a long history of several CFO roles, always in innovative industries. Startups and scale-ups, so I quite know the dynamic that our companies in our ecosystem go through firsthand, so that's good.
Great, well, it's great to have you on board, I must say. And well, you started right at the moment where we're kicking off with the Growth Fund. Very exciting times, big ambitions on our plates. What is the biggest challenge according to you on this Growth Fund?
Yeah, I think so. It's maybe in general when an industry is scaling up like we're doing, there's all kind of dependencies that need to go hand in hand. The chicken and egg problem is all over, and I think it's great that we have the Growth Fund to, on the one side, support the development of the technology to mature it from the lab to fab, and on the other hand have means to stimulate the demand for the PICs itself. And I think you don't need a glass ball to understand that if the industry grows, you need more employees, more human capital. So it's great that we also have funding for that to stimulate the influx of talent to the industry, so both newcomers as well as people that come from other industries into this industry, to make this a vibrant ecosystem to work in, and to broadcast that worldwide.
Yeah.
So that's great. But all in all, everything needs money. Money makes everything more easily. It helps on a lot of dynamics, but especially in an ecosystem where you need a lot of startups to create the demand. So on the demand side, you need application builders, you need new companies to see the opportunities that we can do with the PICs and how that can be used in applications.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so I understand, Bas. So in order to support these companies that are on the application side that will in the end generate demand for PICs, it's important to provide funding. And I see also on the other 2 points you mentioned within the Grow Fund on, let's say, industrialization. So being able to scale up production capacities requires also investment, right? Equipment, people, and so on and so forth. So maybe let's zoom in a little bit more into that funding aspect of the growth and also of the challenge that we're at within the integrated photonics industry. So what, according to you, are the biggest challenges for startups and scale-ups in this deep tech domain when it comes to funding?
I think it's to prove your concept. It's maybe in general in deep tech, which of course this industry is truly a deep tech industry. To prove your concept, your idea that it works, to create follow-on investments on executing on that. I think there's already a long way to go. There's money needed. There's expensive tools that need to be used, expensive process to be run to create your working prototype. In that phase, there's so much risk. There is technology risk that normal investors don't understand. They maybe over-exaggerate the risk. There's lack of understanding of the solution that you actually bring. So every startup is a solution for a problem, but convincing investors, look, this is indeed a problem that needs to be solved, and this is the best solution for that. You need detailed understanding of the possibilities of the PIC itself.
Yeah.
So I think there's this challenge that is not being solved in the traditional way. So it's great that we have money allocated for that to bring startups to that first difficult phase to at least go from telling this is what we want to do to showing what you can do, and that will unlock a larger pool of investors that were able to join into that, to say, okay, look, now I see what you're doing, I understand the problem a little better, the technology still a black box for me, but I see it working.
Yeah.
To get there, there's already so much funding needed, and there's so a lack of investors in that space. And we, with the growth fund money, can really be in a very early stage, bring that company to prove your concept, to make the solution tangible, which will really accelerate the chances for follow-on funding. So it's a huge challenge, and I think it's great that, especially in the deep tech, in that early stage, that very early stage, that we have means to support those startups.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the nice examples is Astrape Networks, who will be also on the show later today. They secured the funding, I think it was a week or two ago, at 1.6 million. And it's really to, exactly what you said, develop that working prototype and then to bring that to production to show that the potential of this technology and how it can be applied. So if I understand from you, it's, let's say, the difficulty in the funding landscape is that it requires a lot of, let's say, knowledge on the technology itself, which often is not there with the investors. So there's a hesitance, let's say, when it comes to investing in it. The value of debt is deep. It requires a lot of, it's capital intense because there's machinery, as you said, a lot of processes that need to be up and running. So also the value of that can be quite long. And that's where I think, well, the role of public money of the growth fund can make a big difference, as you mentioned. So that's great. Maybe looking back also at PhotonDelta and what we've been doing so far in terms of funding. Maybe how do you look at the role of PhotonDelta in there?
Yeah, so I think so next to the money, the expertise comes into play, right? So I think that's like you mentioned that there is expertise needed to assess the solutions. The track record that PhotonDelta built over the years being the party to look at. Look, if PhotonDelta is on board, it's a huge confirmation of that it's valuable technology and a valuable solution.
It gives trust. Yeah.
It gives trust. So I think that's what PhotonDelta also brings, which is great, and therefore. And maybe next to that, we can support that first journey of those early stage startups in defining the best route to a solution with expertise that we have on board and we can bring in as well.
Yeah, exactly. So looking back also, I think PhotonDelta so far we have mobilized over 300 million euros in funding for integrated photonics companies. So we've recently, it was decided to let's say spin off the activities of these investment activities when it comes to the scale up, so the later stage investments. So as you mentioned just before, PhotonDelta will still focus on, let's say, the early stage companies. Can you maybe describe a little bit what type of companies we're looking for?
Yeah, so it's really the early stage, the validation of the of your idea and your business plan, and we can stage our funding as well, right? So up and towards building that prototype. I think that's where the sweet spot is of our investment strategy and our mandate. I need to say from the National Growth Fund money. So it is indeed at this very early stage, and that's why exactly what you mentioned. We spun out our existing portfolio of the more established companies to a new fund, which is great for the industry. That there is PhotonVentures recently announced as well, and those will be the follow-on investors on our future investments when we bring them towards that proof of concept. Then PhotonVentures might take over to give those follow-on rounds and that seed money indeed to grow to revenue.
Yep.
But yeah, the sweet spot is this very early stage, building your technology, building your company towards proof of concept.
Yeah, all right. Maybe last question, looking into the crystal ball. Do you think, how will the future look like for funding of startup and scale-up? So now we mentioned there is a specialized funding organization, PhotonVentures. Do you think more of these will emerge? And what will the role of PhotonDelta be then in the future when it comes to funding?
So I think the future for PhotonDelta will still be in being that platform to lift off these new initiatives, to embed them in the ecosystem. I think what we didn't mention yet is that of course the next to the expertise PhotonDelta has as a foundation, as an entity, we also have the ecosystem of the PhotonDelta, and I think that collective knowledge and that really the understanding that we have to operate as a collective really helps those startups in accelerating.
Yeah.
In terms of funding, it's hard to say. I think there is more and more appreciation for deep tech.
Yep.
There's more understanding that it takes a longer role, but deep tech inherently needs government support. I think it's all well known that and discussed broadly that in the US, for instance, there's not so much direct government support, but indirect contracts from the military or space, the NASA, which really, as a customer, gives that support, that acceleration. We don't have such industries in Europe, but we do have that understanding of that we need private money, public money,
Public money, yes.
to kickstart and to help do that value of that, and that cannot only be private money. So although there is I see that there is more appreciation for deep tech, it needs to go hand in hand with the government and the European government, most likely, to say, hey, let's embrace these initiatives. Let's see where we can support in the American way with assignments, with contracts, or with grants.
close on a positive note. Thank you very much for joining, Lawrence. And if you're interested to discover more on this topic, on the funding topic, next month at the PIC Summit 2023, we'll have various sessions and speakers about investment readiness, the investment landscape in the PIC industry. So I invite you all to come and join us at the PIC Summit. We will also host a specialized investor session on the side on the second day. So go to picsummiteurope.com and check out the program and secure those tickets. Thank you very much. I welcome to the studio Francesco Pessolano from Astrape Networks. Francesco, welcome. It's been a while since our last meeting on Delta Dialogues. That was in January at the Photonics West in San Francisco, where you launched Astrape Network practically. And now, well, let's say a couple more months down the road, things are changing and are growing. Can you maybe, for those who haven't seen the January edition, quickly introduce yourself and Astrape Networks, please?
My name is Francesco. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Astrape Networks. Astrape Networks was incorporated in December with the mission to use photonics to build optical networks for data centers. So we use something which the University of Eindhoven has demonstrated in the past years. And with that, we believe we can basically help data centers to have communication networks where transceivers are no longer needed. And this will allow them to not only reduce power, but to actually increase their efficiency and make more money.
Interesting. Well, very good application, I would say, for integrated photonics, and also in some ways it's very concrete on how it can help the datacom industry to let's say scale their performance, but also reduce energy footprint, which of course is becoming a more and more important topic, also with the emergence of AI, right?
Yeah, it's what was not so important before AI, which is the energy consumed by the telecom network in data centers. It was like 5-6%. In the past years, because of AI, it has risen up to 60% of the data center consumption. So if we remove all, let's say, the transceivers that will be planted, which are all the one inside the network, we can reduce the energy consumption of the network of 80%. That is 80% more energy of the network, which is about 20% at data center level energy, and that can be used as a saving, or you can put more servers, which means you can increase the capacity, you can increase your revenue. If you go that route, maybe less data centers need to be built, but it is significant, and it's all because of AI. AI has changed the rules of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, so you mentioned that your mission is to, let's say, replace these transceivers and to reduce the energy footprint of the data centers. But maybe can you talk to me a bit more about the technology? How does it work?
Well, the idea, it's naive in the sense that if we look at the networks today everywhere, not only in the data center, what happens is that the data is in a server, it's converted into optical form, put on a cable. The cable brings it to a switch or a router, depending on which network you're looking at. That gets converted back to digital, it gets stored, and then this switch router, when is the proper moment, converted back to optical, send it to the next node, and so on and so forth. And every time you convert, there is a transceiver. Every time we want to go faster, in internet we talk about 800G, 1.6G, but in data center is the same. That basically means that this conversion needs to be faster, twice as fast, every 3 years. Twice as fast means more energy. We can play around with co-packaged optics or other tricks to reduce it a bit, but in the last 6 years, we went from 20, 30 milliwatts to 15, 18 watts. And this is only getting worse. So what is our approach to solve the problem of this energy? It's actually getting rid of the transceivers, of the conversions. And when you get rid of this, there is an additional benefit that if you've been at Photonics West or OFC or ECOC next week, and actually even at the PIC Summit, you will hear more and more that doubling the speed of this transceiver is getting really difficult for power, for temperature density, for complexity. So let's get rid of them. And that's what we're doing. I mean, we're not getting rid of all of them because you still need to attach a cable to a server, and eventually the data centers needs to get out into the internet. But all the one inside that needs to go fast, we're going to get rid of them. And we do that by using integrated photonics, which basically means the data, once it's on the cable, is optical, and we steer it optically all the way from its sender to its destination. So it's naive, but it's extremely complex to build.
All right, well, that sounds very promising and indeed very necessary, relevant technology that you're developing in Astrape Networks. I think you're doing quite well because you just closed an investment round of 1.6 million, right? So congratulations, first of all. And maybe can you tell me a little bit more about what you are planning to do with this money?
Well, the 1.6 million is important because what I described as naive, but stated very complex to build, it will take a long time. We talk about 5-6 years. And the first step is to actually demonstrate that you can use integrated photonics and build a network between servers and let the servers communicate, let's say, in a real way with a proper networking stack, level 2, level 3, even level 4. And this is what we're doing with this money. We want to go beyond what has been demonstrated so far by various parties, which is build a photonic switch, attach a couple of boards, let them send some data and say, hey, it communicates, but actually use a photonic switch, attach it to servers, build the entire infrastructure. So we are doing the scheduling, layer 3, layer 4, and demonstrate that at a small scale, actually, this works. And then in this way, we can then convince other investors and customers to join the party and then go from few servers that are talking in the way they should to hundreds of thousands of servers. And that's where actually it's the journey after this current stage. But this 1.6 is really important. It basically allows us to bring the people that can build this first step.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So you're already looking ahead, right? That okay, there's to be a next round where we can then really, let's say, increase the number of customers using this technology. How do you look at these funding rounds? Like, are there any challenges that you encounter in getting the money that is needed to grow your business?
I mean, this is deep tech, and it's as deep tech as it goes, in the sense that contrary to what people might normally think of startups, that says it's all about market and customers. Yes, it's all about market and customers, but we are not going to have a product for the next 6 years, which means we are not going to actually have any revenue in the next 6 years. It's all development. The technology is photonics. I think everybody who is listening to whatever I'm saying, the first reaction is, well, photonics beyond lasers, some other things. This is not mature to actually go into the million pieces. So there is a lot of uncertainties, and this makes it a really deep tech and makes it very, very difficult to go to investors and say, hey, we want to build this. Eventually we will need 50, 60 millions to get to a prototype, and we're not going to have sales for 6 years. On the other hand, the investors understand it, and somehow this is, for photonics and data centers, this seems to be the right moment for investors to bet on it. Okay. And what I think, and again, you will have to ask my investors if what I'm saying is right, but what I think kind of convinced the investors to talk to us and try to do this first step is that the plan we have, the stepwise plan we have to actually get there is realistic in a way that it helps to also de-risk the development risk. What I mean with this is, we are not in the United States where you can go to an investor and says, give me the 50 millions, sit in the corner and actually invest. This is what people think of the US, which is wrong, by the way. We need to go with a plan that says this is what we want. Any revenue. So.
All right. So we mentioned the difficulties when it comes to the long value of dev. So the long time of that you need to develop your prototype, let's say, to prove your product is fit for the market. So do you think there is enough funding options available for you right now?
I think that there is enough funding to get started for sure. And to be honest, in the Netherlands and Europe at large, there would be enough funding for us to go all the way. For our specific case, though, because data centers is not exactly a European thing, we use them, we have them, we are affected to it. We as a company, we need to also seek validation by bringing also a non-European investor that has, let's say, more experience even in that sector, and that can validate also the entire story. But in all honesty, this is our specific case. If we wouldn't have this, let's say, requirement, I believe that there is enough funding for a project like this one. Not for many, but things have changed, and in Europe there is enough funding. For the first step, I think we raised 1.6 in various forms. I think we raised quite a lot for where we are. But if you go beyond this step, let's say, where you talk about, especially from round day onwards, there is enough funding, even only in the Netherlands. It's just the first step is a bit complicated because there will never be one investor that is willing to put all that risk on the table.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
That's the main difference. That's the main difference, I think, that still we have between going to the United States or staying in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. And so you mean, okay, the money is there at first to start the business, to get started. But then when you look at strategic investors that maybe have a better understanding also of the technology and maybe have the network within the datacom industry, that's something that there's not available. But that would be, I guess, the step after that.
Right, that's the step where we are now. So also from the current investors, they would have enough funds to bring us all the way, but they themselves want validation. And again, this is specific to our story. There will be other stories where probably there are investors which are knowledgeable enough market-wise in Europe, and then you don't have to go to the States. So for us, it's just a requirement we have given. It's more than just money, let's say.
Yeah. All right. And what do you think is the role of public money in this field?
Well, we got a lot of it. And I have to say that it is very important. I think we have looked at instruments like the TTT and the BSF. This is, in the end, it's all public money. And it is extremely important when you're doing a pre-seed. And as an entrepreneur, you just need to understand which are the tools you can stack together. And not only money-wise, but also with the people behind them, what can they bring? But at the end of the day, the private money is moving more and more down towards round A, and public money is very important to be at seed and pre-seed. So I would say that without public money, I wouldn't be here talking to you.
Yeah, all right. Well, good to hear. Is there any last things you wish to convey to our viewers before we conclude the interview, Francesco?
Well, if you think that photonic switches are cool, talk to me. We continuously look for people. And if you're an entrepreneur trying to raise money in photonics, do not be afraid. Talk to everybody in the ecosystem or reach out to me if you want. But it is possible. It's not like it used to be. It is possible to raise more than $1 million and actually be able to build a significant first step in your venture.
You're a great example of that. Thank you very much, Francesco. And we'll see you on ECOC next week.
Yes, see you soon.
In Glasgow. All right, take care. Bye-bye. All right, welcoming to the studio Joachim de Sterke. Joachim is a general partner at PhotonVentures, a recently launched fund specialized in integrated photonics. Joachim, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, Jorn. And thank you for having me.
All right, great. So Joachim, maybe to start off with, as our viewers might be unfamiliar with PhotonVentures, can you tell me a little bit more about what you guys do?
Sure. PhotonVentures is somewhat of a spin-off of PhotonDelta. So we are a 100% private fund focused purely on integrated photonic startups. And I think specializing in deep tech is something difficult because you need specific knowledge in order to get there. We take this a step further and saying, well, we do good tech, but specialize in integrated photonics. And with our team plus the use potential of this market, we can think we can bring this to success.
All right. And talking about the success, why do you think it's a good time now to start a fund like PhotonVentures?
Well, in the past 5 or 6 years with PhotonDelta, we built a great ecosystem, both from a national perspective within the Netherlands, but also in Europe in general. You see an entire booming market of semicon, and attached to semicon is integrated photonics. PhotonDelta built great building blocks for startups and scale-ups in order to swiftly go from a proof of concept to a minimum value project. And in parallel, of course, these companies need the proper funding, but also the proper knowledge and expertise and network in order to get there. In that sense, and of course, PhotonVentures being a spin-off of PhotonDelta, also a lot of the founders of PhotonDelta, I myself, joined the fund. We think it's the right time in order to leverage the things we've done in the past towards a future success.
Yeah, all right, very good. And I think you mentioned also the phase of the industry, the maturity. Is there also a shift in, let's say, funding requirements as the industry is maturing?
I think there is more funding requirement in terms of numbers, so not per se in terms of ticket size. So with the entire industry maturing, with the fundament and technology institutes surrounding these ecosystems, there is great potential and opportunity to make great startups using integrated photonics or semicon in general. With those building blocks, you should be able to make a product and launch it in a commercial sense in a somewhat cheaper way, because there is a supply chain which supports these companies. Having said that, of course, this potential comes with a large number of startups spinning off from universities or technology institutes, or just founding them by means of their history. And these need to be supported. So I think there will be a larger number of these startups who need to be funded. Yeah. But in general, I believe their ticket size from being a startup or scale up should be less than like 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay, all right. And earlier on the show, we also spoke to Weers, the current chief financial officer of PhotonDelta, about that PhotonDelta has the ambition to still do, let's say, the very early stage, that seed or pre-seed fundings. And what will PhotonVentures focus on?
Well, I think our strength is at a early stage. I think a lot of startups have great ideas, great technologies, but they need some more mentoring and need to be surrounded by investors who have a specific expertise in order to have them accelerate towards a point that they can carry themselves. So we focus on seed and early stage, but it's always a bit of what is what. So in our view, a seed ticket is about €1 million, and a Series A ticket from us is about €2.5 million. We always invest based on investors' consortium, so we will never do an entire investment ticket ourselves, and are always seeking other investors which carry their own specific knowledge. So in an ideal picture, you have an investor consortium of, let's say, 3 investors. One being PhotonVentures with specific knowledge of integrated photonics and bringing that to market. One having a specific knowledge of the market that the startup will sell to. So let's say it's a datacom or telecom startup, then having a strategic on board which has the network in that market is a plus. And then often a public or more public investor, which brings the local network knowledge and investability towards an entire ticket.
Yeah, all right. And so how do you look at the difference of, let's say, in roles of public and private funding, right? So I mentioned that PhotonDelta has the ambition to do maybe the very early stage ones that are not yet ready to be invested by private funds. Is that also how you see it, where there should be private funds like PhotonVentures taking these startups to the next level?
Yeah, sure. I think the entire equation of a successful startup, having both public and private funding available is a very large denominator in their success. And from the public's perspective, PhotonDelta is doing a great job. And especially in a very early stage, there is not a lot of facilities out there which you can attract to do the first couple of steps in order to make a investable company. And so having building blocks, not only from a technology perspective, but also from a funding perspective, enables a great landscape for startups to move from very early stage to later stage.
Yeah, all right. And so I think if I get it right, you're saying, okay, from the public perspective, there is now with PhotonDelta quite, and also other initiatives, quite a solid base of options where startups can find their first maybe grants or loans. How about the private sector? Do you think there is enough capital available for integrated photonics? Like, are there other VC firms like yourself specialized or willing to invest as much in this technology?
Well, there are a lot more deep tech VCs nowadays than like 5 or 6 years ago. And as said, deep tech is somewhat booming for the right reasons. I think investing in something which has a solid base of hardware and IP has often much more value intricate in the startup than, for instance, a software startup. But looking at the investor landscape in general in Europe, we are still lacking very much behind in comparisons to the US or to Asia. If you look at the deep tech VC landscape in Europe, you don't have per se a lot of specialized deep tech investors. So it's often more a general thing. We invest in deep tech, or we invest in deep tech in a certain industry. Not a lot of we invest into towards a certain technology. So from that perspective, we are quite unique, and also is often our added value towards a startup, being the shareholder who has a position and knowledge into integrated photonics.
Yeah, right. And I think at the beginning also of this interview, you mentioned that you're somehow a spin-out of PhotonDelta, right? So this is also expertise and knowledge and network that you guys bring along as a VC firm. And does that also, let's say, impact the way you look at funding? Like, is your funding strategy also taking into account the impact on the ecosystem, or how you can leverage? How can you leverage those things?
And we both say, well, integrated photonics is important, but making use of the ecosystem which PhotonDelta has built in the past 6 years is also something which is very important to us. Startups which think they can do everything themselves and do not share the knowledge with other startups in an ecosystem, both from a supply chain point of view, but also from an application side of view, are often not the best startups. So we think using the things in which we, or the Netherlands and Europe, invested in the last couple of years, having a fundament there that you can vertically integrate instead of doing everything yourself is something which is in our investment criteria, and is something we will stand by. And I think that creates a somewhat 1 + 1 is 3. Because using an ecosystem also requires a focus within a startup, knowing your supply chain much earlier than at a later stage, but also making sure you don't spend your funds in an incorrect manner instead of using a supply chain in a proper way.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. Maybe a last question before we conclude the interview, Joachim. You're going to be a member of the panel in a discussion during the PIC Summit in early November. That will talk about investment landscape. We'll have a couple of startups, a couple of investors there, bringing the American perspective in, but also the public ones. What is it that you're looking most forward to get out of this discussion?
I'm very much looking forward to it. Last year I missed the PIC Summit, so this year I'm honored to be on a panel as such. What I look forward is a proper understanding of how difficult it is for a startup to be investable. Often often it's somewhat biased, often saying, well, it is easy to get funding. No, it's not easy to get funding. In the papers and in all the news, you only often see all the startups who were able to realize funding and not the startups who were not able to realize funding. There's no press releases saying, well, I wasn't able to realize funding and now I stopped my startup. So I think it would be great if we have quite a proper understanding and a fundament of what is needed, both from a startup perspective, but also from an investor perspective, into a spin-off or a startup in order to get the proper funding at an early stage, but also at a later stage.
Yeah. All right. Great. Well, thank you very much for the interview, and to the audience who's looking at this episode. If you're interested to speak to PhotonVentures, you can visit their website, photonventures.vc, or come to the PIC Summit and get to see them in real life. Thanks again, Joachim, and see you in November.
Yeah, looking forward. Thank you, Jorn.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So welcoming to the virtual studio, Chiara Greganti from Vitrea Labs. Welcome, Chiara, and thank you for joining this Delta Dialogues episode.
Thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here.
All right. Maybe we can start off with a little introduction about who is Chiara and what is Vitrea Labs doing?
Yes, definitely. So hi, everybody. My name is Chiara, and I'm a co-founder and CTO of Vitrea Lab. We are a spin-off of the University of Vienna, so we are based in Austria, and Vitrea Lab is a photonics startup where we revolutionize the display industry with a unique technology based on laser light. In particular, we write waveguides in standard glass plates. And with this, we can create an illumination device which produces an array of laser beams, fully independent in red, green, and blue color. And with this laser illumination, in terms of array of laser beams, we can enhance most of the displays out there. And in particular, we can even create new types of products like augmented reality glasses for outdoor use, or virtual reality to make it even more compact and a lightweight design for a lot of uses, and more efficient smartphone displays and so on. So with the controlling laser light very precisely at the microscopic level with our unique waveguides technology, we can create a number of products in the display sector, but in future also for other applications like telecommunication, sensing, and so on.
Interesting, Chiara. So you mentioned you are a spin-off of the University of Vienna, right? So how old is Vitrea Lab now?
So Vitrea Lab is almost 5 years currently.
Okay.
And initially, we were based for the first year and a half at the University of Vienna in order to use their laboratories to do our R&D and first product design. And by now 3 years, we have like a full independent facility. We have built our clean room. We have a group of 10 engineers who work in the clean room and make R&D and produce our product design and prototypes.
All right. Well, that's a great milestone. Congratulations on that, of course. And so, and if you look at these applications you're developing and the technology that's growing, how do you look at the future of Vitrea Lab? Like, what are your next milestones?
So our next milestone is actually creating a prototype which is close to a final product, and with that have the first agreement of collaboration and partnership with a big company to bring this product to the market. So we are still at the pre-revenue phase, so seed stage, where we are defining the first product to go to the market, and looking for a partner to bring that to the level of mass production in large consumer application.
Okay, and looking a little bit more at the technology, right? So you mentioned you are pumping waveguides into the glass, so the red, green, and blue. But what kind of technology do you use for that?
So we create waveguides embedded in glass in a completely like a 3D form shape, which allows them to have a very compact and dense network of waveguides inside the glass, which by eyes then it will look completely transparent. And the way we can create this type of waveguides is by using a laser writing process, which has been now used since 20 years at the research level in several academia and in few research groups worldwide, but has not been used yet at the industrial level. So the biggest challenge of the first few years of our company was indeed developing the process of laser writing for these specific waveguides towards an industrial process. That means making it repeatable, to have like a good yield of waveguides and optimize it for a specific product.
Yeah, all right, interesting. And so basically now you are working on your prototypes and you're looking for partners in the next phase to really bring that to mass production, to the market. All right, very, very good. And what about if we look a bit at the topic also of the panel discussion that you're going to be part of at the PIC Summit in November? How about the funding? What is the current situation with VitraLab? Are you actively looking for funding, or what is the situation?
Yeah, so VitraLab was mainly by now funded by public grants and private investment, mainly from the Austrian region. So really local investments. Currently, we are finalizing a discussion for investment coming from a photonics expert VC from Europe. And we are really looking forward to conclude that. But for next year, we are already planning to have a bigger round, more close to the Series A. And in this case, we are expanding our outreach to not only European VCs, but also to non-European, so even US VCs and more. This mainly because we want to expand and to find a good partner which has expertise in hardware startups and also could connect us to our future customers in a better way.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not just about finding the money, but also finding an investor that has the connections you need. I think this is something that more startups are looking into, and I think it's the good strategy to go. And you mentioned then the US, for example, and is that because you think there's more market there for this type of technology? So you can maybe find a partner that can connect you better to those markets?
Yes, I mean, we are the first product that we want to launch to the market. It's mainly for AR and VR applications, and there the US has much more push in these areas and in these markets, and also the biggest customers and OEMs in this field are based in US. So we think that could be like a nice link.
Yeah, all right. And so, according to you, is there enough funding available in Europe for startups like yourself?
It's hard to say. I think so. In general, from the VC deep tech, I think there is potentially quite a lot of funding available. What I kind of encountered during the discussions with the VC is that mostly the specific hardware deep tech is not very well liked, since, as you know, I mean, hardware startups like also in photonics, you know, and moreover, if you need to also develop a new process, it takes many years before you fully have product to the market. That's why the risk is higher and so on. And usually VCs, they want to have after 5 years or so an exit, and that's why it's a little bit more difficult and challenging to find such a VC that understands the timeline and the effort for a hardware startup in Europe.
Yeah, I understand. And you mentioned that, so for now you've been making use of grants to get your startup off the ground and to develop your technology. And so how do you look at, let's say, public versus private funding options for startups in photonics?
Obviously public funding would be the best, since it's equity free. But the counter side is obviously that it always linked to then a specific project. That means if the startup has to pivot or has to move faster in other directions, then you don't have a lot of freedom of operating. And additionally, also the timeline of submitting, reviewing and accepting the proposals from public grants is also quite long. They don't fit very well with a high competitive market where we are.
Yeah. All right.
That means I think it's always a good balance to have both, some private VCs and public grants.
And some public grants, of course, yeah. So are you experiencing any challenges when it comes to finding your funding for your next phase?
Yeah, so during this last couple of years, I mean, considering also the macroeconomic situations, it was a little bit challenging to get really VCs interested to move to the final closing. And mainly because we are in this exactly particular phase where we don't have yet large revenues from a product to the market, and we are still developing, so we are still in this high risk phase. And the challenge is always finding people and VCs who believe and they actually then like the risk.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And looking at the event that's coming up in November, are there any specific things you're looking forward to on the panel discussion?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see the different views from VCs from all over the world. So not only from Europe, just to have also other opinions on how the funding situations abroad are, and also the knowledge of expanding the networking also within photonics startups. I think that's quite important, and I think I can get a lot of insights at the PIC Summit event.
Yeah, I think there's going to be plenty of startups working with photonics, so that's for sure you're going to meet a lot of them. And also the investors, it's also one of the target audiences of the PIC Summit, and we'll also host the Tech Tour Photonics on the second day of the PIC Summit, a side event especially designed for investors and startups to meet each other. Also for people looking at the Delta Dialogues episode, make sure to go to picsummiteurope.com and reserve your seats, because the tickets are going fast. All right, I think we've covered pretty much everything, Chiara. So we'd like to thank you very much for your time and the nice chat we had, and I look forward to seeing you at the PIC Summit.
Yeah, thank you. Looking forward to see you in person and to see all the other photonics partners there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So we just concluded our interview with Chiara Greganti from Vitrea Labs, which means that unfortunately we've come to the end of this episode of Delta Dialogues. Well, next month we're going to be back in November during the PIC Summit, which is taking place on the 7th and 8th of November. So also I would like to remind you, as tickets are selling fast, if you're looking for a seat, quickly go to picsummiteurope.com and secure your spot, as tickets are running fast. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.